If you're anything like me, you know the struggles of growing up poor. It's tough to always have to rely on yourself and never ask for help. But let's be real, we all secretly wished we were born into a wealthy family. However, did you know that being rich isn't all sunshine and rainbows? Yup, that's right. When you grow up in a bubble of luxury, it can be hard to face the harsh realities of the world once that bubble bursts. So today, I'm gonna spill the tea and give you 12 major disadvantages of growing up rich. Trust me, some of these might even surprise you. Get ready to see what life is really like on the other side of the coin. Number 12, a lack of hard adult skills. Now, I'm not saying that all rich kids are like this. Some of them are incredibly talented and hardworking. But unfortunately, a lot of them have grown up with a silver spoon in their mouth and haven't had to do much for themselves. They might be great at soft skills like communication and teamwork, but when it comes to getting their hands dirty and doing the nitty-gritty work, they tend to struggle. It's not just about being able to fix a leaky faucet or cook a decent meal. These skills can also translate into professional success. People who have mastered specific skills tend to be better builders overall because they understand how things work on a fundamental level. Number 11, a lack of hunger and motivation. Specifically, a lack of it among rich kids. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some wealthy individuals out there who have a fire burning in their belly and are determined to make something of themselves. But unfortunately, the majority of them lack that hunger and drive that you need to really succeed. You see, when you grow up with money, your main motivation is often just to prove that you're more than daddy's cash stash. And while that can be a powerful force for some people, it's not enough to sustain you in the long run. That's why so many rich kids end up working in their family's business. They don't have the same kind of drive to strike out on their own and make something happen. But let me tell you something, that kind of hunger is what separates the winners from the losers. When you're faced with the prospect of failure or going hungry, you better believe your motivation kicks into overdrive. You push yourself beyond your limits because you know there's no other option. Rich kids might try to work out as entertainment or dabble in hobbies as if they were jobs, but when things get tough, they retreat back into their comfort zones. They don't have that same level of commitment because they always have safety nets underneath them. Number 10, entitlement. A trait that unfortunately plagues many rich kids. These individuals grow up thinking that they're entitled to special treatment and that the rules don't apply to them. They act like drama queens, expecting everyone around them to cater to their every whim and fancy. You see it in their friendships too. They think that you should drop everything and attend to their little inconveniences because, well, they've always been the center of the universe. But here's the thing, this kind of behavior shows a lack of empathy for others who may be struggling with their own problems. And the worst part, this entitlement is often rewarded in their bubble growing up. They get gold stars just for trying, not for actually achieving anything substantial. So in the real world, they expect the same kind of treatment, but let me tell you something, guys. That's not how things work. In order to succeed in this world, you need to have a sense of humility and empathy for others. You need to understand that everyone is fighting their own battles and that you're not entitled to anything just because of your background or upbringing. Number 9, unrealistic expectations. Have you ever noticed how sometimes rich kids can develop some unrealistic expectations? It's not really their fault. Everyone around them is constantly telling them how amazing they are for even the smallest achievements. But that can lead to a dangerous mindset where they believe they deserve way more than what the market is willing to pay for their skills. So what do? They launch these overpriced candle or jewelry businesses, thinking it's going to be the next big thing. And sure, maybe some of their parents' friends buy a few items and give them some initial support. But when they try to expand and sell to the wider world, all they hear is crickets. Why does this happen? Well, it's because those early sales were just signs of support, not true indicators of value. These rich kids fail to build up their business organically and end up begging their parents for ridiculous amounts of money just to keep themselves afloat. But let me tell you something, success doesn't come from handouts or unrealistic expectations. It comes from hard work, dedication, and putting in the time and effort needed to create something truly valuable. Number 8. Nobody is honest with them. Trust is a big issue. And for those who grew up with money, it's even more complicated than that. They're always on the lookout for people who might be after their wealth, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. See, when you're rich, there's no one out there to keep you accountable or call you out on your mistakes. So you keep pushing yourself to the limit, hoping to find where it ends. But here's the thing, most of them realize they need help at some point or another. Whether it's through extensive therapy or high-end coaches, they seek out experts who can show them what they need to improve in their lives and hold them accountable for it. And let me tell you, they shell out tens of thousands of dollars to get the right people on board. It may seem unfair to some, but having access to this kind of support is one of the biggest advantages that rich people have, even if they are not as driven or hungry as others. Number 7. An overdependence on money. Those who come from wealthy families have been spoon-fed to believe that money can fix almost every problem. They don't even bother fixing things anymore. They just throw some cash at it and call it a day. And when it comes to emotions, forget about it. If they hurt your feelings, they think they can just buy your forgiveness. Can you believe that? But here's the thing, without their precious money, they are as helpless as a baby bird trying to fly for the first time. They can't even change a tire or fix a leaky faucet on their own. They're so overly dependent on money that they don't bother developing any foundational skills or know-how. I mean, come on, people. When you can always throw money at problems, you never take the time to develop your own skill set. You don't know how to solve a problem for yourself, you only know who to call to solve it for you. But let me tell you something, the beauty of learning through trial and error is priceless. Number 6. Pressure to maintain appearances. Reputation is everything when it comes to long-term prosperity for a family. And that means sometimes doing things that you wouldn't normally do. You gotta learn how to spend big bucks just to keep up with the image. When your family's friends invite you on an extravagant trip, you can't say no. Otherwise, they might think that you're having money problems or something. And don't even get me started on showing up improperly. It's all about that facade and keeping up the mask. But hey, let's not forget who we really are behind all of this pressure and stress. At the end of the day, we're just human beings trying to make our way in this world. Number 5. Inferior work ethic. The silver spoon syndrome. You know what I'm talking about, right? Those kids who were born with a silver spoon in their mouth never had to work hard for anything in their life. Well, let me tell you something, that kind of privilege breeds an inferior work ethic. But here's the thing, if you have hunger in your heart and fire in your belly, you can beat those rich kids at their own game. They may get tired after 2 hours of focus, but you've been pulling all-nighters since you were babysitting your younger siblings. That kind of dedication and commitment is what sets you apart. Number 4. Unfamiliar with sacrifice. Growing up with everything you need. Have you ever felt like life has given you everything on a silver platter? That's great, but let me tell you something, the concept of sacrifice is unfamiliar to those who never had to trade their treasures for necessities. Kids born into wealthy families find it hard to grasp the idea of sacrificing their summer vacations just so they can pay for next semester's tuition or fix their car. But here's the thing, life rewards self-made individuals in proportion to the sacrifices they are willing to make. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, but what about those who were born into wealth? Well, let me tell you this, the concept of sacrifice is not something they grow up with. They never saw their parents take them to McDonald's and only order one happy meal for their birthday and the small portion of fries with them. They might know hardships, but not sacrifice. Number 3. Inability to manage money. It can be tough to live within a budget when you've never had to before. I mean, who doesn't love buying ice cream at the store or splurging on things we don't really need? But then suddenly rent is due next week and we're left wondering where all our money went. You know what causes this? It all goes back to our childhood days when we received an allowance that we could just spend however we wanted. Sure, all our basic needs were taken care of, but any extra income we generated was spent on pleasure without a second thought. And now as adults, it's hard to break that habit. Number 2, poor understanding of how much things cost. We all know the running joke of asking rich businessmen and politicians how much basic household items cost, but let's face it, it's not just a joke. These people are completely disconnected from reality. They spend most of their time in fancy restaurants, nightclubs, and gyms, and before they know it, they assume that everyone else can afford the same lifestyle as them. The real problem here is the disconnect between how much things actually cost and how much these people think everyone else earns. When faced with real-life situations, their math just doesn't add up. It's frustrating to see such financial delusion when so many people are struggling to make ends meet. Number 1, going into the real world is a downhill experience. I know what you mean when you say going into the real world can feel like a downhill experience. If you've been cruising around in a Mercedes your whole life, downgrading to a 2010 Toyota Corolla can be a bit of a shock. Growing up rich definitely sets your baseline level of comfort pretty high. But let me tell you something, experiencing the finer things in life shouldn't just be reserved for the wealthy. Sure, you may have already stayed at 5-star hotels and flown first class or private, but that doesn't mean poor people can't enjoy gradually working their way up to those levels of comfort too. And don't get it twisted, being born into wealth does have its advantages if you know how to use it wisely. But don't let appearances fool you. I'm sure you've seen behind the curtain more than once in your life. So let's talk setbacks. What are some challenges you've faced on your journey? Looking for more exciting content? Don't miss out on the latest videos from my channel. Hit that subscribe button now to stay updated and never miss a beat.